How are you doing? He's hoping that all is well with you. As promised, this is the special edition of one-on-one, and definitely maybe we might be turning it into one-on-two this particular moment. I'm joined in studio by a senior journalist. He frowned his face when he had the promo that he's a specialist on Great Lakes.
I had a big smile on my face.
You had a big smile. Aren't you sure about yourself?
I'm very sure about myself. You know,
you didn't frown. That's the face of somebody who's becoming senior.
Yeah, so I have Albert Rudatsimburwa, who's also a media owner and of course senior journalist, as you heard earlier on. And with me also is genocide scholar and specialist Tom Ndahiro. Welcome to One-on-One.
One-on-two. Okay.
Yes, today it's one-on-two.
Yeah, so we hit one plus two makes three.
So one-on-three.
Simple arithmetic.
Okay, so our specialists and analysts and researchers. I'll take that for now. Now, listen, we're here to talk about the issue of this mystery of the bodies that were found in Lake Rweru. And there's been a lot of speculation. Sometime in August this year, there were allegations that over 40 bodies were found floating, wrapped in bags, limbs tied. And there's now this whole story of where do these bodies belong to? Are they from Rwanda? Are they from Burundi? And you guys took your time and went to Burundi, and then you had your time to look for information regarding this issue. I'll start very quickly with you, Albert. What do we know up to now in terms of what you found out from there?
And by the way, we didn't just go once, but we even went twice. But just to comment on your question, you start by mentioning the reality. The reality is that there are bodies. Those bodies that are now buried in Burundi. As far as we know, and from what we saw also from pictures, because when they buried them, we were not there, but we saw the pictures after that. At least there we have pictures. That we have 4 people who have been buried at Lake Rweru.
So you saw pictures of the dead bodies or pictures of the tombs?
No. The tombs we saw them because we were there. But what we saw are the pictures of bags and at least one body that we could see on the pictures. But now, the story is not about the bodies anymore. The story is about creating a story there, creating a narrative on location, according to me, and we'll see with my colleague Tom here. But you know, there are so many contradictory stories since we went there, since also what in fact pushed us to go there, also to find out what was really going on. So the only evidence that we know so far that we really can say we saw it are 4 tombs at the lake, and we think with 4 bodies there. We really think, because as we move on in this discussion, we'll show you that there's so many other stories, but for us, it's a building up. It's a building of a narrative. But we can't see evidence of that.
Hold the thought on that. Maybe let's bring in Tom here. Building of a narrative. You as a researcher as well on matters that probably move around such kind of issues. Why would someone build a narrative on this issue, and what would that narrative be, or what does it look like today? Because you also took your time and went there. Maybe if you, as you answer this question, you can also tell us your side of the story. Albert has just told us what he saw.
Well, apparently we were together both times. We first went there on the 5th of September, and 2 weeks later, that is, it was on the 19th of September, we went back. To start with, when we went there on the 5th, the story was still fresh, because it was about, I think the first time I had it was around the 31st of August.
Yes, it started coming in around 26, 27 there.
Yes, but when I got attention, I got the attention of that story was on the 31st or 29th of August. And there are 2 or 3 things which interested me. One, once again, we were talking about bodies, and these bodies were floating in rivers and lakes. But the first story which I heard, that I'm still talking about, the first thing which interested me was the bodies floating in Lake Rweru, of which 70% of that lake is in Burundi. And the stories talked about bodies floating in Lake Rweru on the Burundian side. But they would say they are coming, the bodies are floating in Burundi, but they're coming from Rwanda.
From Rwanda.
And later on, the bodies were buried, but the bodies, they were talking about 40 bodies, but the bodies which were recovered were 4.
So the question is where the other...
There was 4
Yes.
plus 0, making it 40. But of course, when you're talking about human lives, the issue of arithmetics doesn't work.
Doesn't matter, yeah.
Even one, whatever.
Even if you're talking about one person. Another thing was attributing that story to unknown sources, but saying these bodies are coming from Rwanda.
From Rwanda.
And then now the story was changing. Was changing the touch. The third thing was 2 genocide deniers, the 2 Americans by the name of Annie Garrison and Peter Allender, now coming forward saying, true, these bodies are coming from Rwanda. There is another genocide, silent, slow, and systematic. They used those words. And now that's how I got interest as a genocide scholar.
So for you, the interest was to go and bring the truth out on this
the
unraveling.
unraveling
Yes.
the sad story of bodies floating. That then we decided to go to Burundi to see what happened. But what we saw was 3 graves, and they told us one had two bodies in. And
because they explained that they also came together in the same bag.
but whenever we asked, but the number is 40,
Where are the other ones?
you'd fail to get anybody to tell you what happened to get that number 40. Actually, others, mind you, the first stories talked about 45. Then we talked to different people. We had to go to Burundi. Actually, you can easily get to Lake Rweru. It is not very far from here, from Kigali. But we wanted to go to the source of the story, and that was going through Muyinga and then to the border with Tanzania, and then driving up about 80 something kilometers.
Kilometers, yes.
And now, what Albert was saying about the build-up of a narrative.
The narrative, yes. Let's talk about the narrative.
It's not just a narrative. It's a narrative of lies and of rumors, but full of lies.
For what purpose? Who would want to have this?
Let's first go, if you don't mind. I know you're the boss, but just to help you on before we go to the who, let's sum up. Because things that we have heard about, okay? Yes. Because ever since end of August, you'll have people saying, and it's people in the media, right? Specifically BBC and RFI, specifically, they've been
another news agency in Burundi. Another one, of course.
It's also correct that we what we want to explain here, what we saw is that you have BBC, RFI as the mainstream stuff, and then you have all kind of websites in Burundi also talking about this story. Now, what are they saying, and what have we heard so far? We have heard about 40 bodies, or 45 or whatever. When we were there, that number even went down to 10 to 15. That was carrying
17
to 7. That was the group where amongst those 4 were found. Now, we didn't find any evidence of those other bodies. The only thing that we saw was those 3 tombs there. Now, what we have heard also, when we were there, we've been speaking with people who are living there on the banks of the river,
on the shores of the lake.
And the authorities.
What you're saying, yes, we'll be coming into the authorities, what they have said, and what I want us to understand is,
but let me tell you about
this element of the narrative part.
Well, let me explain you, because why do I say a narrative is because we've heard things that were picked up by the media, you know, and I say there is a narrative construction there, a build-up, because we couldn't find the evidence of it. Like those bodies, we didn't find the evidence of 40 bodies. 40 people is a lot of people, you know, it's a lot. It's a couple of families, you know. That is one thing. Secondly, we've heard about these things about that on the bodies. First of all, they say they came, in fact, attached, tied up with stones. And we say, okay, fine. If there are stones, how could they be floating? You know, that's the first breach in it. Stones don't float, right? And if you tied up a body and it's and you tied up more stones, a heavier weight than the weight of the body, because that is why you put in stones, so it wouldn't float. That is first thing. Secondly, you must have heard about that. They say that they found, and it was on BBC, and a BBC journalist saying that the Baturajis, the locals are saying that they found a card, a mutuelle de santé card, insurance card from Gisenyi. Now, even on our second trip, it was debunked. The guys couldn't find the person who had found it. You know, we on the two trips we asked everyone, and at the end they say, okay, you know what? It was by a local authority. Yeah,
the quotation was
yes.
They quoted the local.
And again, they told us that all of those bodies were naked. You know. Then how did you find the card? But then again, what we also know. They
said the bodies were naked. You said earlier on you saw pictures. Were they naked?
They're naked.
They're naked
on the pictures.
So looking at all
but
this,
let me give you the list of things, because then you see it's a narrative.
Let's have him first finish that part.
It's important to listen to us.
So you see, first of all, they're naked. Then an insurance card from Gisenyi. We knew as Banyarwanda that you will never find in this world a card printed mutuelle de santé of Gisenyi, because Gisenyi doesn't it's now Rubavu. So, but they were insisting. So we knew that something was fishy there when we were insisting, of course. Okay, and they didn't find it, and they finally accepted that there was no one. Okay,
these are those fishermen.
Absolutely. And in fact, there's one thing to say is that when you arrive there, any journalist will come there, will be welcomed by one guy that has been welcoming all the journalists all of the time, and this guy organizes the whole trip to always meet the same fishermen, the same authorities, the same people. Meaning that the interviews that we did, Tom and I, we heard the same voices in other stories of other people. It's always the same people.
But are they saying the same thing?
Yes.
What they tell you, are they telling the ones for BBC?
But not necessarily saying.
Not when we dig deeper in the answers. You know, like this thing of the card. No one did it before. The other journalists didn't ask more. They just take it for granted. When we insisted, they say, okay, fine. We couldn't find that authority again. Secondly, they said they had a T-shirt. They found a T-shirt for naked people. Remember? Now, a T-shirt, and it was written on a T-shirt in Kinyarwanda. Okay, fine. Even now I'm wearing a T-shirt. Could be in English. Could be anything. But again, this contradiction of naked and then the T-shirt. Then when we really insisted, okay, who said it? Who found that T-shirt? Again, we couldn't find the guy. Then when we arrived, people were the second time. We in fact had we met the Burundian army there on location. Actually,
but Albert, before you go to the second trip, it's worth noting that we had heard stories. To begin with, someone would tell you the bodies looked like intellectuals.
Oh yes,
and like businessmen. How do you determine so-and-so is a businessman or is an intellectual and is dead? That is one. Two, they would tell us, we so-and-so could be among the dead bodies. And then questioned them. We asked them, how did you come to that conclusion? And nobody could answer affirmatively. Third, they told us these bodies were floating but had stones. That's when we started, in the bags, and heavy stones. And they repeated this thing in an interview, and in a special program they had on the BBC on the 13th September. Then we started asking ourselves, has the rules of physics changed? If something is supposed to sink and is floating, what happened? Was it a plastic stone? Or what was it?
Let's now jump into the officials, because you've said you talked to locals, you moved around.
But Eugene,
it's also important
that we are coming to we are coming to that
because of time. Also, it's also important that we understand also what the authorities say. If you talk to any of the authorities in Burundi, what were they saying? What did they tell you?
The few we managed to speak to,
the authorities so far, they will tell you on record that they have a joint commission with Rwanda, that they are working on it, and then off the record, nothing is happening because there
is no investigation going on.
This is what they will tell you on the record, and then later tell you
nothing is going on, because nothing is going on because also.
Actually, different levels of administration in Burundi are contradicting each other.
Yeah.
Someone would tell you at a lower level, we are investigating. The prosecution department will say, there is nothing like that. Because we are off the record. We are the ones who are supposed to do that, and we are not doing it.
This is someone from the prosecution you talked to and said this.
No, he spoke to
our colleague. We did
a
joint operation with Burundian colleagues who also want to know what is going on over there. Now,
and mind you, we are not forensic experts.
Sure.
So our investigation was not going as deep as knowing who killed who and where.
But at least to unravel the mystery.
At least to come up.
So the reality is that for real, nothing. When it comes to investigation, nothing is happening.
In both sides, Rwanda and in Burundi.
Yes, but again, you see, for us, we build our stuff. In fact, our angle. From first, we met the Rwandans, and the Rwandans said, but hey, guys, all the evidence is in Burundi. What else can Rwanda do here? But so then only have a joint commission and say, we at your disposal if you need our support. This is what the Rwandan side was saying, because we also said, okay, fine, let's assume that the stories are correct about that these bodies are coming from Rwanda. So even after our first trip with our Burundian colleagues, we came back to Rwanda. And we went to the all those districts around.
But he asked about the authorities.
Yes,
we spoke to chef de zone
of Burundi.
Of Burundi.
Yes.
The fishing
association,
the fishing associations is in Masaka zone, and there are two points, lake shores. One is called Inzove, another one is called Dagaza. And we spoke to the chef de zone there. And of course, the story he repeated was the same. The bodies came, but we know the bodies are coming from Rwanda. How many were they? We got 4. But others are talking about 40. So, which story did you take? Well, it's between 40 and 4. We also, the second time, we spoke to the military. Actually, the second time, I and Albert were in the same boat with the colonel who had just come there. And he joined us when he had just come from the Dagaza place. And that's when we first heard a rumor from we thought it was a rumor. I'm talking about the 19th, the 19th of this month, when they told us that a day before, someone whom they suspect was a Rwandan soldier came there from Kirundo, then Muyinga, and then to
picked
that
up
point.
A girl.
They had.
He picked up a girl in Muyinga, came all the way to the Lake Rweru. Now,
You're
for you to go
kilometers plus.
to go on the lake, you go with the Burundian Marine, with the Burundian Defense Forces. They take you on a Marine. So he took the same boat, went to the tombs.
But they don't
took
say
a picture, took pictures of the tombs according to them. That's what we heard when
this is according to the officials.
To the militaries.
Yes.
Because they were there for that reason. They said they were not there for us, but they were there for that reason. So they took pictures he took pictures of that tomb, of the tombs that he has to go to Rwanda on the Rwandan side.
He wanted to know the source, and they
source.
said, you know where Akagera comes in, joins Rweru.
Lake Rweru.
And then he went across to Rwanda because there is a fluid movement between the Rwandans and Burundians.
Yes, but he was still,
when he reached
to do that, you still to be on the Marines boat. So they went all the way to the Rwandan side. He went off the boat, got on land, and there he was according to them, to the story, he was saluted by other officers. You know, then the lady came. That is where the story is very weird, because then the lady came back to report about it, that there had been a Rwandan military or police that came. But you see,
and then you ask, who is this girl? You get no answer.
Wait,
you get no answer.
How did he go there?
Yes.
Or did he go there with marine boats?
With the
you don't get the answer.
Forces.
Which fisherman went this person? You don't get the name.
Yeah. And so I sorry, Eugene, but the story
today I just want to hear from you guys, because you went there.
But it's very funny, because last night I heard somebody called me and said on BBC, you know what? Apparently some people in the night were trying to
exhume the bodies. Yes.
Now this is for honestly speaking, Eugene, when I hear the two things, either it's another story, it's another rumor, it's another fable. Or the guys who did that are getting nervous and are trying to do what I
want us to know, also for our listener.
We should tell our listeners the attitude we
from the ground
assumed.
Yes,
when we heard about this story of a soldier with a girl on a motorbike coming to the lake, and they sail. You don't get the name of who took them and who this girl is. All of us, we said, this must be a funny fiction.
Because what I want us to understand,
4 days later...
No, not 4 days. You're right.
Yesterday.
4 days.
3 days
later. You had
this
the
is
story on the
which
BBC.
We said this is stupid and fiction. This is story was on the BBC. And it is as if this thing is...
there are those who listen to your story. There are those who probably are listening to you and maybe have been seeing your tweets or comments, even on this field trip that you went there. And maybe in their mind, they're like, okay, look at them. These ones are the ones who have been sent either by the Rwandan officials or whoever from Rwanda to go and brainwash and make people not feel like this story is really a Rwandan issue. How would you explain to them that indeed, what we went there to do was a mission to unravel this and not just a competition between BBC, RFI, and what they're saying?
First of all, we're not competing. We're leading. No, this was a joke aside. Okay, but we're not competing. We really go there because this thing is getting bigger. But we don't feel like mainstream media is really treating that with the normal journalistic ethics that it deserves. Especially because there is something very important here. From day one, the reality is what? The real hard thing that we know about this news is that, in fact, there is an accusing finger in the direction of Rwanda. It's saying that there is... So, because it's about us or Rwanda, that is why Tom and I went. It's a coincidence. We are colleagues, but we discussed it and we decided to go together. And on location, the only thing that we can say is that any story that came up in other media, sorry, but in fact, it is based on zero, on rumors. On location, the only thing that we can say is that there are 3 tombs, and apparently we saw the pictures, there are some bodies in there. Anything else, which is very, because what we need to know, Eugene, there is something very weird in that place. First of all, everything is connected by the water, but the stories, you don't hear them in Rwanda. You don't see them, you don't hear them up or down the river. So you only hear them there. And when you're on location, while we were on the waters, our driver who was with us mingled with the population there. And they had conversations. And very funny conversations is that these people there are convinced, or they say they are convinced, that in Rwanda, people are bad, that they are killing, and that Rwanda is about to attack Burundi. And when Tom was mentioning those websites from Burundi, and so this is also the kind of comments that you read on those websites. So there is this thing coming up in that place, and we're not even aware of that here, or no one even seems even to understand. And everything is every day there is a new rumor about something. Now there is another side of the story that we haven't shared until now.
Maybe before you go to that other side, I'd like to bring Ndahiro here, because especially when you say the accusing finger pointing at Rwanda, let's talk of the Rwandan officials. What is it that probably in your journalistic mind, or also as you do this story, because you also need to be objective and look at both sides and give each side a chance to give their explanation, what is it that you think probably the Rwandan institutions that are probably in charge or should be in charge in tackling this issue, if there is any role they need to do in terms of investigations, what is it that they're doing wrong that probably is not helping with clearing the air on this whole issue of pointing fingers at Rwanda?
When you are talking about murder investigations, you're talking about a serious issue.
Yes.
It's not something you wake up and start talking about it without conducting a serious investigation. As journalists, when we went to Burundi the following day, we came back and we met the mayor of Bugesera, who borders Burundi and whose district borders touches on Lake Rweru, not touches, has a part of Lake Rweru. And he just said, well, we heard about this. We met the authorities in Burundi where the bodies were found. And the best thing to be done was to do a thorough investigation. And the one to, of course, naturally and logically, the one who was supposed to start this investigation and then ask the cooperation of Rwanda was Burundi, where the bodies were found, and eventually where the bodies were buried. We also went to a river stream, Akagera, which flows down to close to Lake Rweru, and we asked the folks there, what did you see? And they said, we saw nothing. Now, the issue here, we are talking about dead bodies. And an accusing finger is against one. But it's not based on an investigation.
What investigation is being done? Because when you say thorough, because how do you bury bodies without an autopsy?
But that's a question. That's a question supposed to go to Burundian authorities.
I think both Rwanda and Burundi. I mean, because if you say there is a joint, when they tell you there is a joint,
there isn't.
So there is no joint investigation.
No. It's only for mainstream media,
for the papers.
But in reality, there is no investigation. You see, Eugene, even when you do an autopsy, if let's say somebody falls in the lake and dies, and you find it back, you find the body back like 10 days later, and you don't know who it is, you bury the body. You don't start with an autopsy. You see. So
you
in this case,
to the police.
No, but fine. You report to the police. Even the police would then bury. The authorities would bury the body. They don't do an autopsy. You start an autopsy if somebody claims that, hey, I lost. If there are no claims of nobody coming to those authorities saying we've lost our people, it could be them and all of that. But of course, if you have something like that coming up. But no, in fact, I was about to say you would take pictures and have them out there. But when you see those bodies, they were they were in such a state that you wouldn't take pictures and
They're so graphic.
Also,
yeah.
what you'd expect is looking at the magnitude of the stories that are coming out of
But
this
it's
issue.
more in the media.
Yes,
that is my concern.
It would definitely require
Eugene,
each side
in the
to
program
do-
called
but
Invonivan,
no,
Yes.
but Eugene, I keep
in the special
wondering. I still don't understand why at this stage you say both sides, because
there's nothing like both sides.
you see, everything is
there
in
is
Burundi.
there is an accusing finger and there's an
From
accused
whom?
person.
No,
right?
the accusation
from
the
where-
accusation
whichever
comes
quarters.
from that's
From
it.
the media, right?
From the media.
Yes.
That's
So doesn't that mean that at least the side that is being accused should also probably come out and say, okay, listen,
But
we
they
need,
did.
we need
I mean,
investigations.
but no, but Rwanda said they
Albert,
are
there's one
part
thing
of-
Eugene has to understand. When we came back, it was difficult for us to report that the soldiers said this and that.
Okay.
Because they said this is off record.
the soldiers in Burundi.
The soldiers in Burundi. And on the 13th, in this program which we had on the BBC, the minister of local government in Burundi, Edouard Nduwimana, said, well, we hope the investigation will be conducted by Rwanda, and he said this because he had been told by a BBC journalist that there is evidence, there is ample evidence that the bodies came from Rwanda based on two things.
Yes.
One,
The
the bodies had Mutuelle de Santé card with them, and two, some had T-shirts written in Kinyarwanda. But the only source, it was them. But in the same,
so the accusing finger was based on two things that the journalists are saying that they are evidence.
But hold on a bit. When we went there the second time, we just wanted to know, what about this thing about called Mutuelle de Santé?
Sure.
Who was the source? How do they see it? Because in the very program, in Vonimvano, they were talking about all bodies they recovered were naked.
So
now, all
there
of a
seems to be
sudden,
contradiction
they have T-shirts
over there.
Yeah, but now we asked the chief fisherman and the chief broker, I would say the chief broker. He told us, well, the bodies were naked. The issue of Mutuelle de Santé card, we had it from a certain conseiller that you are talking about, an official, who got the information from a certain fisherman. And then we asked, who is this fisherman? Who is this conseiller? Is the advisor of who and where?
And they couldn't answer.
The answer wasn't there, despite insisting. In spite of insisting,
so all evidence of
and they said, what about the clothes written in Kinyarwanda? Said, oh, you know, this is story we didn't get here in Burundi. We just had it somewhere.
So the conclusion, the conclusion then, because every time you have a story, you need to have a conclusion. At the end of the day, what are you concluding?
There is a part of that hasn't been shared in the media here that is being said in Burundi. In fact, in Burundi, people are saying that this could be Imberakure victims. That this is a very Burundian story about Imberakure victims in Congo, even Bafurero. Could be
these are political parties, right?
These are the Imberakure is the youth that is connected to the CNDD-FDD party, which is in power for the moment. There have been several accusations. Even Mr. Human Rights of Burundi is in prison. A guy is 66 years old, Mr. Mbonimpa, is in prison for that. The EU has been pressing Burundi to release him. There are so many stories about shady things happening in Congo. Another thing also that you need to consider in this context here is that what we're saying about this narrative being built up in that lake is that for the moment when we were there, and those websites are talking about an eventual tension
between Rwanda and Burundi.
Tension between Rwanda and Burundi. Now, we are saying in this framework, in this timing, where there is so much pressure on Congo, on the FDLR, that they have to disarm and all of that, it's like someone is trying to create an atmosphere in this region that there is eventually a regional, and to push it, to give it an angle of an ethnic tension that there could be in this region. And that is why this is not the time to put pressure on FDLR, because of a kind of tension like that. Another story that came up also is when people were telling us that they've heard that the victims could eventually be FDLR, who had been demobilized in re-education camps and been executed there. And this could be a story that could support the fact that don't send FDLR back to Rwanda. They're not safe. You know. So this is what we say. Obviously, this whole story, it's more about the narrative that has been constructed, built up on location than on true evidence.
All right, Tom, very, very briefly, your conclusion on this story.
I think I tend to buy his analysis. I've done a thorough study on the narratives that are constructed by FDLR. And whenever you read something, you always think there must be something. Like this Météo de Santé thing. There is a website, whom I would call it a website of Interahamwe, it's called the Rwandan. It's a blog. And it's the one which posted a picture of this Météo de Santé card, but it was from district of Ngororero. So you link up Ngororero, it's a former Gisenyi prefecture, and then there's something like that.
Yes.
And when we went back to Burundi, I asked these guys, how come you manage to see the origin of a person and then you don't read the name of a person, of a victim?
So in conclusion, Tom.
The conclusion is, one, there is a great necessity to do some investigations. And two, this investigation has to be from the source.
In Burundi, that is.
In the Burundi.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. That is where we just put the curtains down on this particular special edition of 1 on 2. I was told earlier that we just have to change the connotation for that matter. Now, remember, this is 89.7 Contact FM. The discussions and conversations on all the issues that we've talked about right here continue online, and the hashtag to use is 101RW. We just want to thank you so much for listening, and of course, apologies for the disruption in our programming. Coming up next is the Kenya-Rwanda edition of the same discussion that we've had right here on 89.7 Contact FM. From me, Eugene Anangwe. Goodbye for now. On behalf of my guest, thank you.